Every major infrastructure cycle starts the same way, with something breaking that was already known to be weak. Over the last 72 hours, we've seen a major U.S. sewage system fail, global institutions warn that water scarcity is now permanent, and the public reminded once again that modern life runs through pipes most people never think about. In today's QuonTradeTalks episode, we're scanning 3 real-time stories, all from the last 3 days, to see whether they validate or challenge our watership thesis. The idea that water infrastructure is entering a forced, long-duration investment cycle. No hype, just what broke, why it matters, and what capital is likely to do next. Markets don't move when the crowd expects them to. They move when pressure builds quietly, underneath the surface. This is QuonTradeTalks, where we track capital before it becomes obvious. Capital moves quietly. We move earlier. QuonTradeTalks. Capital moves. We move earlier. QuonTradeTalks.
We're learning last week's sewage spill along the Potomac in Montgomery County may be much worse than officials originally thought. So this happened along the Clara Barton Parkway last Tuesday. The Potomac Riverkeeper Network says the samples they took show E. coli bacteria is nearly 12,000 times above the limit for human contact. They also say almost 300 million gallons of sewage entered the Potomac. Wow. The president of PRKN is calling it one of the most disturbing things she's seen in 25 years of river keeping. We've reached out to DC Water about this report, and we are still waiting to hear back.
Our headline story comes out of Maryland, where a 72-inch sewer interceptor pipeline collapsed, spilling an estimated 40 million gallons per day of untreated sewage into the Potomac River. This wasn't a surprise failure. The pipeline was already known to be aging and in need of repair. And that's the key point. This wasn't bad luck. This was deferred maintenance finally snapping under stress. From a watershed perspective, this is direct validation. When a system fails at this scale, especially near the nation's capital, the conversation immediately shifts from, can we delay upgrades, to, how fast can we fix this so it never happens again? Events like this historically accelerate mandated capital spending, because the political, environmental, and reputational costs of inaction become visible overnight. Things to watch include the DC water repair scope and cost estimate, which is expected within weeks, any EPA enforcement actions or consent decrees, emergency funding approvals, or accelerated capital plans.
You also for attending this session and advocating and writing for water. Today, I'm here to tell you that for much of the world, normal is gone. This is not to kill hope, but to encourage action and an honest admission to failure today to protect and enable tomorrow. Today, the United Nations University Institute for Water, Environment, and Health is releasing our flagship report, Global Water Bankruptcy, Living Beyond Our Hydrological Means in the Post-Crisis Era. This report, published on the occasion of our 30th anniversary, declares that the world has entered the era of global water bankruptcy. For too long, we have been living beyond our hydrological means. We have overdrawn renewable income and liquidated natural savings that used to buffer us, like groundwater, wetlands, soils, rivers, lakes, and glaciers. And in many places, the savings do not come back on human timescales. At the same time, the world is shrinking its water savings accounts. More than half of the world's large lakes have declined since the early 1990s, affecting nearly 1/4 of the global population that relies on them directly. Around 35% of natural wetlands have been lost since 1970s. That is a cumulative loss of roughly 410 million hectares, or almost the land area of the European Union, with over $5 trillion in lost ecosystems.
Specialized Story zooms out globally. A new United Nations report warns that much of the world is now living in a state of water bankruptcy. That phrase matters. It means water systems are no longer experiencing temporary shortages, but operating in structural depletion. where natural recharge can't keep up with demand, pollution, and ecosystem damages. From the watership lens, this is a major long-term validation signal. When scarcity becomes permanent, infrastructure spending doesn't cycle down. It compounds. Recycling, reuse, monitoring, desalination, storage, and resilience all move from optional upgrades to baseline requirements. This kind of framing from a global institution doesn't create projects overnight, but it anchors policy, funding frameworks, and multi-year capital plans. Things to watch include outcomes from 2026 Global Water Policy Forums from the UN, new public-private funding mechanisms for reuse and resilience, and national plans shifting from crisis response to permanent adaptation. Put together, these two stories tell a consistent story. A known weak pipe failed and spilled tens of millions of gallons of sewage. Global institutions are warning that water scarcity is no longer cyclical, but permanent. And even without viral pressure, the systems themselves are a force in action. This is exactly how long-duration infrastructure cycles begin, not with innovation hype, but with unavoidable failure. The watership thesis isn't about predicting the next crisis, it's about recognizing that capital has no alternative but to move into water systems. Because the cost of not spending is now higher than the cost of building, that's not a trade, that's a structural shift. Thanks for watching.